Hello, Malcolm here with some background to Acts chapter 13. We see on the map the route that Paul and Barnabas took, and we're going to begin where they started in Antioch. This cave church in Antioch has been standing since the 1st century, as far as we can tell. Here's a little bit of background about this cave church. The early Christians in places like Antioch had to find places to worship. Sometimes they couldn't worship in a home. So a cave would be a natural place, like we're seeing here. As we go inside the cave now, you'll see where your early brothers and sisters worshipped together 2,000 years ago, right there in Antioch where Paul and Barnabas set out on their first missionary journey. Now where do they go? They go to Seleucia on the coast, and it's from there that they take a ship to Salamis on Cyprus. In looking at this picture here, you're seeing the original port of Seleucia. That's all that remains of the original port. Let's hear a bit more about it. Paul and Barnabas walked somewhere right where I am, maybe just right behind me, or over to the rocks here, which would have formed part of the port wall at the time, where they got on a ship and set sail to Cyprus, not knowing what to expect there. God ended up doing some astonishing things, as you read in the book of Acts. But they didn't know. They didn't know what was going to happen. And why did they even go there? Why Cyprus? Of all the places, there were much bigger cities, much more prestigious places to go. Well, a good number of theories, which I'll pass on to you another time. Paul, Barnabas and John Mark get in the ship and set sail from Seleucia, and they land in Salamis on the island of Cyprus shortly after. This is the spot where they landed 2,000 years ago. They preached in the synagogues and most likely also in the amphitheatre. Let's hear about that. And this is Salamis, and this is the place where Barnabas is from, and this is where Paul and Barnabas came, and it is where Barnabas would have spoken, and presumably Paul as well, but Barnabas was the key because he is from Salamis. And therefore he would have gained credibility with an audience to listen. These seats may well have been completely filled. It's not unlikely, because whenever somebody came into town, I mean, this was the big event. There was no radio, there was no television, no internet. And so when someone came in and they had a different message, the town would turn out. It would be, at least in part, for education, and some for, in some sense, entertainment. What else are you going to do on a hot summer's evening? Probably about 10 p.m. in the evening, because that's when it's cool enough for this kind of event. And so Barnabas would have stood somewhere, like where James was, and proclaimed the gospel. And who knows exactly the response of everybody in this crowd, but some, perhaps even, it seems like many, loved what they heard and questioned Barnabas and presumably Paul as well. And they taught them, and quite probably in the area around the gymnasium in the background, where there are some rooms around the side of the gymnasium area where they train the warriors, the young warriors, where it is said that they did Christian training and teaching. And why not? You've met with thousands of people in this arena. A good number have queued up to ask you more about this, probably quite a lot of Jews, but also presumably Gentiles. And so you say, well, let's go over to the room over there. Let's have a meeting, let's have a gathering, let's chat, let's talk, and let me tell you more about this. Next, they travel across the island to the capital of Paphos, where they established a Christian community. We know this because there's a record of Sergius Paulus being converted, and we have cave churches from that time with Christian inscriptions. We're looking at the house and staterooms for the proconsul of Cyprus, built in around 45 AD, possibly the largest set of rooms ever built for a proconsul, and it is presumed that it is here that Paul and Barnabas met with Sergius Paulus. But we do know that this was the location of all the proconsuls during the Roman times, and the dates fit for Sergius Paulus to have inhabited these rooms and used them for state occasions, and almost certainly this is where he would have met Paul and Barnabas and had the confrontation with Barnabas. Following that, finding that Jesus really was Lord and that his power was to be respected, and deciding then to follow the way and take instruction from Paul and Barnabas. Perhaps he was baptized in the ocean, just a short walk across the way. Where do Paul and Barnabas go next? They get on a boat and they travel to the port city of Perga. Perga is a stopping off place in order to get to Pisidian Antioch, where Sergius Paulus's family were from. They entered and off they went. The significance of this location and the events that occurred here cannot be overstated in the development of Christianity. It's here that Paul and Barnabas landed, just down the coast, came here to Perga, before travelling on to Pisidian Antioch, where they carried on what we now call their first missionary journey. That first missionary journey doesn't look like it had much of a strategic plan to it, except perhaps the first part in chapter 13 of Acts, where Paul and Barnabas go to Cyprus, Barnabas' hometown, and perhaps they felt the Spirit had called him to take the gospel to his hometown. It's there they meet the proconsul Sergius Paulus, and he becomes a Christian, which is astonishing. A Roman official becoming a Christian. That they did not know when they set out for Cyprus. And beyond that, they go to Pisidian Antioch, where it's believed that Sergius Paulus had a family connection, or perhaps his son was there, or there was a Sergius Paulus clan that enabled Paul and Barnabas to gain an audience when they might not have done otherwise. And so we see step by step, the Spirit is leading Paul and Barnabas on in some kind of mixture of things that make rational sense, that you could imagine planning and developing, because as you look at the map, you think we should go there, or you look at your own life and history, like Barnabas had family on Cyprus, you think, yes, let's go there. But then other things happen that they could never have anticipated, like Sergius Paulus, the encounter with the magician, the blinding of the magician, the way that Sergius Paulus comes to faith, and then perhaps the redirecting of their steps to Perga and Pisidian Antioch and then other places they could not have anticipated. And so it shows us that Paul and Barnabas were prayerful, they planned, but they remained open to the movement of the Spirit, guiding them in ways they would not have expected, anticipated, or perhaps not have preferred, because that walk into Pisidian Antioch behind me, 120 miles or more, it's a long way, it's uphill into the mountains, it's jolly hard work. And if you're going to go there, you're going to go there because you feel called, you believe the Spirit's taking you there. You're not going there because it's easy or it just kind of makes sense. What I admire about Paul and Barnabas more than ever, having been here, is the way in which they blended their own convictions, their own life experiences, their own situation, their own plans, with an openness to the Spirit that gave them not only alternative route or alternative targets or objectives, but also demanded of them great courage, courageous faith. And that's what stands out to me most as I look around here and I imagine them here 2,000 years ago making those faithful decisions. What faithful decisions might God be calling me to, or you to, that might reverberate not just for a lifetime, but possibly for 1,000 years? Possibly more, I wonder. From here they travel into the interior, either by the more circuitous but pleasant red route or the more difficult green route. Nonetheless, they went to Pisidian Antioch and then on to Iconium, Lystra and Derbe, as we read in the rest of the book of Acts. What strikes you about this story? How has the Holy Spirit spoken to you through what we see here about the faith demonstrated by Paul and Barnabas?